4, 3, 8, 7, 6, 5, 1, 2, 1. Eric Wright, some maker, thinker, puppeteer, performer, tinker. But to get it done, he knows two heads are better than one. You'll be delighted at who he's invited to come on by. Get inspired and give their tricks a try. Their work and processes will ignite your own curiosities. Spark authentic conversation. We love your participation. With Katie standing by, let's start the connection. It's puppet time online at Puppet Kitchen.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Puppet Time Online. I'm your host, Eric Wright. Puppet Time Online is your chance to sit down with some of the puppetry community's finest and me and hear about what they know about. Puppet Time Online is brought to you by the Puppet Kitchen, which is your connection to amazing puppetry. From designing to building to performing and coaching, Puppet Kitchen does it all. I am so glad that you are all back. I'm so glad to have you here. I'm joined once again by Katie here producing the show.
Hi.
She's keeping everything running smoothly. And also, very importantly, she will be watching the comments section for your questions and comments. So if you have anything you'd like to ask me or our guest today, be sure to put them down in the chat. We're on YouTube Live and Facebook Live, and Twitch, I think, is also over there. Put your questions down for our guests, and we'll get to them. I'm super excited to have our guest on today. I've known him for many, many years. He and Katie actually are both AMDA alums, and after they graduated, worked to build the AMDA library, the Performing Arts Library there. And he's just an incredible fellow, so it's no surprise that he's also an incredible actor and entrepreneur. He's the founder of Broadway Up Close walking tours, which recently were featured in the New York Times as an incredible thing to do as we come back to New York and build up the theater scene again. So please welcome to the show, Tim Dolan. Hi, Tim.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Of course. It's so nice to have you here. How's everything going over there?
You know, things in Hamilton Heights are busy. It's like an almost normal. You're like, other than like masks and a global pandemic, it's almost normal.
Right, exactly. Which is like big steps now. It's great.
Correct.
Well, I'm super excited to have you on the show. And, you know, it's just so nice to get a chance to, you know, I've known you for years as a friend, and it's good to have an excuse to just like talk business and ask questions that I'm curious about. We always start with, on this show, we always start with how our guests got into puppetry. And I know you have done some puppet stuff. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about your connection to puppetry.
So very early on, and I don't even know, I was thinking today, I was like, oh, there used to be a time in my life where I was really into it. But this is when I was in middle school, well, late elementary, early middle school. I got obsessed with like marionette puppets, but I wasn't awful. And I was in Michigan, and like no one knew how to do that. And I remember I had this big, like, I don't even know where I got it. It was like this big furry bird, like ostrich thing. And it was very cool. And I didn't know how to do it, but I like tried to do it. And then I remember going on field trips, and we went to some like puppet thing in some museum somewhere. And I was like, this is cool. Mm-hmm. And I remember in fifth grade, I impressed this is how I won over my fifth grade English teacher, who was like the meanest woman you've ever met. But we had to do presentations, and I did a presentation by making like a puppet and did this whole thing. And she was like, who are you? You are a star child. And I was like, she likes me. And then from there on in, she's liked me for the rest of life. So a lot of puppet stuff in early life. And then once I started to do theater, less puppets in my life. Yeah. I guess there's probably been shows. Well, certainly I've done shows where there has been puppets as elements of the show. Mm-hmm. But for whatever reason, I have been more the actor alongside the puppet, as opposed to being the incredible magician that you are as a puppeteer.
Now, I know you were booked to play Seymour in Little Shop of Horrors in a regional production. Is that right?
Yeah.
And did you do that, or was right before the
so so I booked it in God, I think it was probably November or December of 2019. And they were like, we'll start rehearsals on March 29th, 2020. And I was like, this is great. What could go wrong? Nothing could go wrong. This will be great. It's my dream role. I waited 15 years to do it. This is great. And I think the day, now I know exactly when I booked it, because I booked it the day before I saw you in the Off-Broadway revival, like very early previews. I don't even think you had opened yet. When was that?
That would have been late. That would have been August of 2019.
Oh God. Okay. So then I knew I was doing it for like 6 months. Great.
Yeah.
I still wasn't off book. Whoops.
Yeah.
So it never happened. So they were like, we'll just do it in 2021. The pandemic will be over by then. I was like, that'll be great. And then no, they canceled it. So I think maybe they'll do it eventually one day, but who knows if I'll be involved, or I don't know. Who knows?
You've said, I feel like I read an interview with you also where you said that playing Seymour is one of your dream roles.
It is. Yeah. It's like Mark and Rent and Seymour Little Shop. But Mark and Rent, they're like, he has to be like edgy. There's nothing about me that's edgy. I was like, but he's kind of Jewish, and I play lots of Jewish characters. They were like, but edgy. Remember edgy? So I think I've given up that dream. There's much more edgy people in this world who are also Jewish, and actually Jewish probably. But Seymour, it felt more attainable.
Yeah.
The thing about Little Shop is that every time I audition for it, mainly regionally, I always get down to the end. For years, I mean, for over a decade, it would be me and one other person. And the other person always got it because they'd always worked at the theater before. Little Shop feels like a show that they do with someone in mind.
Sure.
And so I was always like, well, they're going to do it. Okay, I'm not going to do it then. And so then 17 years of auditioning for it, I finally booked it. And if it weren't for this global pandemic, it would have been great. But you were great in it. Your production was unbelievable.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was so good.
So you're mostly so great. So not a lot of puppetry experience, but that's totally great. You've done tons of acting work, and normally my follow-up question to, how'd you get into puppetry is what keeps you there. Now that you are in the performing arts, what keeps you in the performing arts?
Yeah, I think it's the people. I think it's twofold. It's the people that you interact with, the yous of the world, where you're on stage with these, whether it's a puppeteer or it's a lighting designer or a fellow actor or a choreographer or a musician, whoever it is, I'm utterly fascinated by people. And so there's that element of working alongside other creative people. And I feel like in New York City, you get a lot of people who have journeyed from other places to live here. And whether it's to be on Broadway or whatever their, end goal feels like it is, even if it's just when they start. It feels like it's a mecca for people who are very serious about their art and very intentionally passionate about it, so much so that they'll move to this insane island in the middle of two rivers to pursue it. Right. And so I'm fortunate in living here to have met and worked with a lot of really interesting people across all spectrums of our industry. And then the other half of it that I love is the audience. I'm obsessed with people and how you can do a show 8 times a week and figure out if I raise my eyebrow at the end of a line, they laugh at that. Like comedic timing and figuring out the way people respond to me as a human. I'm utterly fascinated by that play of audiences back and forth. That's my least favorite type of person in the community who's like, wow, the audience really sucks tonight. I was like, yeah, it probably has nothing to do with your performance, right? It probably has nothing to do with you. It's probably just them, right? It's not you not raising an eyebrow at the end of your line.
That's right.
Yeah. And so for me, it's always my fault. You're like, oh, they didn't laugh. Shit. I should have, oh God, shoot. I should have maybe my eyebrow didn't, And so I'm utterly fascinated just by people, both interacting for them and with them.
Yeah, that's incredible. Also, lots of emphasis on the eyebrow. Few people really appreciate.
Correct.
There's really
by the end of training coming in.
Yeah, Emma Watson, I feel like really appreciates eyebrow acting as another example. But
second semester in college, they're like, it's an entire course just from eyebrows up.
Exactly.
Some of my best work happens north of my eyebrows.
So I want to talk a little bit about, I'm going to talk a lot about Broadway Up Close, because it is just, I've been able to see you take this company from its inception to now, like this huge entity getting featured in the New York Times and like also kind of thriving during the pandemic. So there's lots to talk about there, but I want to know how Broadway Up Close started what that switch was like for you as an actor to say, oh yeah, I want to start a company.
Yeah, I think I'll answer that last part first, which is so much about our industry is there's this idea that if you have a backup plan, a plan B is what it's often called, a survival job. If you have one of these, then you're not going to succeed fully as the artist that you want to be. Plan A, I guess, is what they would call it. I never really, you ascribe to that because everyone tells you that. If you could do anything else, do something else, please get out of here if you can. You're like, oh God, okay, relax. Let me try it. Can I try it? Right. I just paid all my money to get my eyebrow acting done in college. Like, can I at least try to use my brows? Like,
right.
Let me do something. And so, I never really fully ascribed to that. And then once I started to, you mentioned this job that I had with Katie at AMDA, it was really flexible. It was the perfect actor job because you could make your own hours. I could come and go as I please. It was a long-term project that lasted over many years. And so you could oversee the arc of a project. I got to know sheet music. I have a niche knowledge of musical theater sheet music, even though it's been years. Yeah. All of it is still up there. And so between me and Katie, it was the perfect job. And so when that came to an end in 2010, I never really thought about other jobs other than performing in this because it really satisfied the artist side of me, the organizational side of me, which is a lot of things that I then incorporated into my business. And so once that ended, I had done the show Altar Boys for years. That ended in 2010. One of my long-term relationships ended. And 2010 seemed to be this year of like, all right, I think we're going to make some concrete, bold steps, that are different than what I've done. Because I have to. And so I got my tour guide license. I decided, before you go see Wicked, maybe I can tell you some things about it. Maybe you'll appreciate it more, make that $189 you paid to sit in the Gershwin, maybe make it worth a little more if you give me, at the time when we started, it was $20 a tour. Mm-hmm. We've increased our prices in 11 years. What's now $39 a tour. Give me all your money. And so, it really started just there. What kind of stories can you tell? I told way too many stories because I want to tell all the stories. So The first time I did it at the time, there was only 40 theaters on Broadway. The Hudson hadn't reopened yet. And so of those 40, I did all of them. And the tour was like 7 hours long. And you're like, whoops, maybe it's shorter. We've made it shorter, thankfully. And so really it was just, what stories do you tell? How do you tell them? What are people interested in? And is there enough of an idea here to then grow this into something outside of just a hobby or a couple bucks between shows?
Mm-hmm. Was that how? I'm really curious about the thinking in those first couple of years where you switch from like, this is just a thing I want to do, or like maybe this has potential to be something more than just a hobby or like a little bit of supplemental income to, a business. Yeah,
the scalability has always been there. You can, because we're not locked into a building, because we're not in a theater, because it's not a show at 8 p.m., you can do a tour any date, anytime, on any sidewalk, really. Mm-hmm. So your parameters, your scalability of where it can go and how many of these you can do and how many people you can have, if you have enough team that are trained well enough to do that, you can do that. And so I always knew the scalability was there. And things like that, even I went to school for eyebrows and tap shoes. You're like, I don't know. I didn't really, scalability wasn't a word that in 2010, I was like, well, this is really scalable. Sure. No, I don't know. I watch a lot of Shark Tank and then you start to like pick up terms. But I also, in 2010, I went to this thing, and I just walked past the building a couple of weeks ago and I hadn't thought about it in 11 years. It used to be a thing, and maybe it still exists, called Score NYC, which is, and I kid you not, it is literally a federal building downtown, and on like the 16th floor, the elevator doors open, and it's just a whole bunch of men in suits who have retired and are done with their life. They're done with their business, and you just sit there and you pitch their idea, and they tell you if it's like a good idea and what to do. Yeah. And I remember the one old guy in a suit sitting on his desk. I was like, why aren't you sitting in a chair? But you're sitting on the desk. Okay. This is very Mad Men, and I'm utterly fascinated by any of this, and it's free, and okay, sure. And me, just like me, but like less beard and like a little skinnier 11 years ago. And I remember him saying, oh, it's very scalable. You could really, this is, I think, a really good idea. And I remember him saying, just make sure you always wear a uniform, which I thought was, at the time, I thought was so interesting. He was like, yeah, just make sure you don't look like a random kid on a sidewalk. Like look like you're in a uniform. I remember giving that a lot of thought of like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess what he means is like branding. And so that's where we all wear green shirts now. We all have name tags. We all have green backpack. Now it's very branded. Yeah. But it was these couple key moments at the beginning that were like, maybe this is an idea, but then how do you ultimately achieve that? And you achieve that by, I think, having a really great product, and then you have a good process of how you deliver that product. And then you have to have people alongside of you who are going to be as passionate about it as you, knowing that they're never going to be as invested as you as the owner. And then you get the people to deliver that. And then the sky is the limit. And so I brought on Teresa Flanagan, who's still with me. Still with us. She's still alive. God bless her. She's still with us. She's still kicking. She's the stage manager, taking over the world. She worked on American Son on Broadway and Straight White Men. And now she's doing a new opera musical theater piece at Lincoln Center. She's a star. So she's still with us, thankfully. And then I hired another friend, Drew, who is a fellow graduate of AMDA, who thankfully is also still with us. He's not with me as a tour guide, but he's still with the world. What am I doing? What are we doing? Here we are. Maybe this needs to be said in a global pandemic. They made it. They survived.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's an accomplishment now.
Correct. At this point, I'm like, they're still around. It's great. So he is still doing his own thing, and he's great. And so those are the first two. And then now I have a staff of, in this exact moment, I have 6 tour guides who are in the cities giving tours with me now. In real life, when we're not in a pandemic, there's 13 of us total. And then I opened a gift shop 2 years ago. So there's 9 gift shop staff. So 22 of us total.
Yeah. Well, how do you?
I just want to show the gift shop.
The gift shop is great.
Look at
so
it.
This came along a little later after you had been doing tours for a while, right?
Yeah. So the idea evolves, right? You know, I even probably when you started Puppet Kitchen, which was how many years ago?
That was in 2008.
2008, sure. Okay. Do better than me. Be older than me. Sure. Fine. I have 2 gift shops that are puppet gift shops in Times Square. All right, yeah, Eric. Right. Okay, so 2008. Yeah, I mean, I think when you start any company, you have a vision, right? But I think it's a narrow vision. You don't really know. To me, it never occurred to me that there could ever be, it's walking tours. So there could never be physical space. What would I even do with physical space? But a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I started to look, and there were food kiosks, an empanada guy, and lobster roll guy. And I thought, well, why can't I have one of those and turn it into kind of like a little stand where all of our tours originate from or end there, or maybe it's a gift shop or whatever. And so that became our physical space as my vision from 2010 starts to kind of expand and go off into other ways. Again, to scale it into not just this niche walking tour thing. How else can you make it experiential?
That's really cool. And you also wrote a book as well that go along with Broadway Walking Tours.
Yeah. So so I opened in 2010. I think 2015. What year is it? 2021. 5 years ago. So 2016. A friend of mine. Oh, I know what it was. This woman came on my tour, and she's a little old woman. I think she's from Long Island. I think her name's Helen. That might be wrong, but she seems like a Helen. And I remember we were standing in the Empire Theater on 42nd Street, and I'm telling this story, and they moved the theater, and it's a crazy story. You'll come on the tour and you'll hear it. And I remember telling this story, and she said, "I want everything in your brain. I want it." And I said, "Thank you so much. I think that's a compliment." "Yeah, can you write it down? You talk fast." And it's like, I just keep smiling, and I can't remember any of it. And I was like, "Oh, I love you so much. I'm not going to do that. But maybe you'll come back on the tour again, and I'll talk slower." Probably not, but maybe. And so I got home and I called my friend. She's a book publisher in the Broadway kind of niche, Dress Circle Publishing. And I called her and I said, "I think maybe I'll write a book." She said, "You don't want to write a book. No one's going to buy that book." She's like, "I love you. You're really talented. People don't, you sell like 20 of them to your friends because they feel like they have to, and maybe 2 more. And then you have this office full of books that you're just trying to give away at press events." And I'm like, "Okay." Says this Broadway book publisher. And you're like, "Okay, great. Well, if you're not passionate and you don't think this model works." And she said, "No, I think it works. I just think for your specific thing, it needs to be a souvenir book. I think it's you go see Lion King and you buy the $20 souvenir book."
Right.
And she said that, and it was one of the most genius things she'd ever said. I love her. Thank you, Brisa. Because I walked away and I was like, that's exactly it. I'm an idiot. That is exactly it. It needs to be, at the time it was going to be, it'll be 15 pages. and it'll be great. It ended up being 54 pages. My graphic designer was like, I will murder you. This was not what I signed up for originally. And my graphic designer, this is the first moment where I really put him to the test, because I didn't know as an artist and creative what he really could do. He redesigned our logo. He was my Tin Man the last time I did Wizard of Oz.
Nice.
As the Scarecrow. And so I said, okay, let's try and do this. And it came out beautiful, and it was exactly like as envisioned. And then we have 6 tours. I've written 4 so far. So we have 4 books. I'm currently working on the 5th as we speak. And then the 6th one is, I'm slated to do it early 2022. And then all of the tours will have books.
That's crazy.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's incredible. I think it's really, it says something that you are thinking about your business as like what's the core experience that people are having with your business. It's not about walking necessarily, it's
story.
like,
I think it's what you do. I think it's why you're so genius, because I think, and you know this better than I, this is from an outside observer watching your puppetry genius. It feels like with puppetry, it has to be simple. It's simple emotion, because you don't have a range of eyebrows from college.
That's right.
I don't know why I'm going to continue this eyebrow for this entire interview.
It works.
But I'm doing. So there will be 3 more eyebrow jokes. So just get ready. Get ready at least. 20 minutes later, you're like, thank you so much for having my eyebrows and me. There's 1. Okay, there's 2 more.
Full bonus points to anyone in the comments that can point out how many times we've mentioned the eyebrow.
Correct. I will send a souvenir book to someone who guessed correctly how many times in this interview right now that I'm going to say the words eyebrows. I browse the library for books. That one doesn't count. It has to be. Okay, I digress. So simple. I feel like in puppetry, it has to be simple because you don't have a range of emotions and physical body parts.
You don't necessarily have all the movement of your face at your disposal.
Correct. And so, it's telling a story as simply as possible, and as beautifully as possible, and as emotionally filled as possible, so people feel engaged. And how do you, to me, it was always, well, I'll just tell the story. But there are other ways, whether it's a book or whether it's a social media post or it's a video or it's through merchandising, which it never occurred to me, because to me, it's like a tote bag and a t-shirt. Like, yeah, you can buy that and it says Defying Gravity and you love Wicked and it was $8,000 and here it was. It wasn't this great. But to me, in the last year, especially with our gift shop, having 60 square feet in the middle of Times Square as a platform to tell our story in a different way, I really kind of wrestled with, okay, what are the possibilities? And you're a maker. All you do is make, right? You're one of the craftiest people I've ever met. I mean, look at your intro and you're like, that probably took you 4 minutes and you were just like, this will be great. We'll just whip something up. And I'm like 80 years later, like, how do I get the sticks of the hand to come, and so this is all you do for a living. So for you, you're like, well, I've been telling stories with crafts for years, and wooden dowels and little things. But for me, it's a really a new thing. And but I feel like we found great success in the pandemic of certain things that we build that have an emotional connection that isn't just a tote bag. We also sell
that's some of the things that I've noticed about like your merchandise too, that really lines up with what your company is doing, is that it's putting a personal face on Broadway. I mean, it's putting there's 100 souvenir shops in Times Square, but they're all completely emotion free. Like they're completely dead. They're just like, the I Heart New York, like it couldn't be a deader expression, like, and your stuff, I remember talking with you because we're also starting to make some Puppet Kitchen merch, and like your emphasis on really making stuff that has been made by hand and that it like has a personal touch to it and that like people can connect to, really makes a difference and totally goes along with this idea that you will talk to people on Broadway about the people that built, like the people who literally put the bricks in the theaters, which is pretty amazing, and also I think just missing in a lot of ways, which is I think what makes the company so brilliant.
Which is crazy, right? I mean, when I really sat and thought, am I going to sell tote bags and t-shirts? Am I really going to open a gift shop? yeah, I guess. I don't know anything about it, right? And I'm like, well, the scalability, you throw all the words and you're like, well, now I know at least profit.
words.
So yeah, this will be great. But I thought brick and mortar, people are like, don't do it. Merchandising, don't do it. Manufacturing, don't do it. And I just thought everyone's answer is, everyone wants to say no so fast. They want to be like, don't do it. It's too hard. And I'm like, why? Well, let me try. Let me like decide for myself that it's not possible. And I think that there's so many no's in our industry that it's like, well, no, you don't do that. That's not something you do. And I'm like, well, why can't it be? Well, let me figure it out. And with merchandising, I think there's a lot of companies that make great merchandise, but I think by the sheer production line of how it has to be produced, how many tote bags for Dear Evan Hansen they have to produce, inherently with a big brand like a Broadway show, it has to be mass produced,
sure,
with slight creativity. Right. And I always joke about Wicked, but they do a really great job with their apparel. They were the first show, I think, to not just put the logo of the show on the T-shirt. I think Araka does great stuff. And we are, in my mind, we're not trying to we're doing a completely different thing. To me, I think of it as like an Etsy store that's highly produced in the middle of the most commercial place in the world, which is Times Square. Yeah. And I've never really actually thought about it, but as you say, like I Heart New York is a logo that I love and is very much protected by the city. And Milton Glaser, who of course just passed this past year, who designed it. But the souvenirs and what they use with that, it's lacking heart, which is ironic because in the middle of the design is a ginormous red heart. And so it's how do you tug at someone's heartstrings and have an emotional connection to a piece of wood or a piece of paper or a piece of acrylic it's a challenge, but when you figure it out, it's very exciting.
Yeah, it's really cool. When you were starting up and you're like encountering all of these, obstacles from other people, I'm thinking about, like just the preparation that you need to start up a business, the preparation that you need to do. Was there preparation that you felt like that you either that you did and later you were like, why did I do that? Or that you really wish you had done now that you're up and running?
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time, but of course the beauty and the curse of those moments are you can't get to the place where you go, oh, I totally should have done this until after you've done that.
Right.
And so there's been a lot of that. I mean, the gift shop initially was just going to be, a kiosk where people can buy tickets. If I have a physical presence and a banner in the middle of Times Square with the 6-foot-tall Broadway sign, of course they will flock. No, it's still no one goes to Times Square for a tour specifically. You have to educate them to the joys of what that could be. Sure. So that was a little, and I said, oh, we'll do some T-shirts. The T-shirts I bought were, the quality that I like, which is fitted and tri-blend and a logo on the back. And we did it all wrong. People were like, it shrinks and it doesn't fit. And why? It's like soft. Why is it so soft? I was like, don't you like soft shirts? No, we kind of like Hanes. We like just kind of T-shirts. And I'm like, oh God, I've ordered $4,000 worth of these. Oh God. And so we still have a couple left. Thankfully, we've sold a lot of them in 2 years, but it's not a complete loss. And then I thought, well, we'll do these postcards. And it turns out people, are not buying postcards as prominently as they used to be. And so in my basement, I have 20,000 postcards in my basement. And you think I'm exaggerating. If anything, I'm exaggerating south. It's probably closer to 24,000. And so this is the year of everyone's getting postcards this year in my life. Right. And you think I'm joking, but there's going to be a lot of postcards happening in your lives soon. They're beautiful postcards.
Of course. Of course.
But, I'm just doing what the souvenir shops do.
Yeah.
T-shirt and a postcard, not going, yeah, but does that really tell the story of what you're trying to do? Mm-hmm. A tri-blend T-shirt? No. Turns out Hanes tells it better. And so we now sell Hanes and nicer T-shirts that you like better, that aren't soft on your skin. And so, but I have no idea what I'm doing. Now I do. Yeah. And in the pandemic, I realized if I take the manufacturing on myself, I can make 20 of something. And if everyone hates it, I never make it again. Right. If someone likes it, we sold these marquee ornaments at Christmas and I couldn't keep them in stock. I sold 8 bajillion of them. And we're doing 4 every year. So in 2030, the entire collection will be finished. And people were obsessed and loved them. And so I made hundreds of them. And so you could figure out, what they like, what they don't like. And then by the time our gift shop reopens for the first time, presenting all of our handmade stuff in person in August, it'll be the first time ever that I'll see someone grab one of my products and look at it and go, oh, this is really nice quality. I really like this. Or, oh, why did they do that? I hate that. I've never gotten that feedback yet because people see a picture, they buy it on my e-commerce store. I get texts and emails that are like, I love it. It's even better than I thought, thankfully. But it'll also be, you need that consumer awareness and the consumer critiques. You need those reviews to help shape your business so that 11 years later, it's pretty streamlined because you've thought of everything.
Do you do a lot of tracking of that data, of that like customer service data?
Yeah, so we're a very small team, and by we, I mean it's me. I do literally everything, especially in the global pandemic.
Right.
I'm working on general managers and things, as I think the fall is going to be the first time where I don't think I'll be able to do everything I've set in motion. I don't think I'll be able to do it all post-pandemic. But because I do everything, Marcus Lemonis, who's this entrepreneur who has a show on, had a show on MSNBC. He's an entrepreneur. His thing is people, product, process. And for me, I knew my team was really good. I knew my product was really good. And so I said, I just have to streamline this process so I feel like my fingertips are all over it, but my fingertips are nowhere near it. So when someone goes to our website and buys a ticket, all the emails are automated. The website is streamlined perfectly enough that they get the information they need. There aren't any technical issues. They buy the ticket, they get the reminder email, they come on the tour guide's on time. They love the tour. After the end of the tour, we take a photo. The photo gets uploaded to the thing. They write a review. And in that process, really, other than the human on site, I haven't had to do a lot throughout the navigation of their ticket sale through the entire evolution of my company.
Right.
And so once those processes are in place, there's not a lot of customer service that we do. I probably get one phone call every 4 weeks, once a month. Do I get someone that's like, oh, I'm having trouble, or this is this? And so you don't need someone at a phone. You don't need customer service.
Right. Because
it's, and I think bigger, larger companies, of course, are dealing with a higher volume. But there's many times that I think if your process was better, I wouldn't have to call you. I wouldn't have to call you with this question because someone else has probably already asked this question. And then you've gotten that and go, I bet someone else is going to ask this. Let's put this on the website and let's just solve the problem for everyone after this.
Right.
We've been doing that for 11 years. Anytime anyone says anything about anything, I note it and go, are they being random? Is that just their particular experience that's unique to them? Or is that a thing that is going to be an issue? And let's solve the issue right now.
And do you physically know that you have a spreadsheet of things that people have said?
So the glorious thing about apps and development of other companies that we work with, we have a reservation service that we use that takes a service fee. So we don't pay for them, but we pay for them essentially commission based.
Sure.
And so this service fee, this app called Peak, P-E-E-K, it's a whole system that's an app and a website based service that really has set up all of that. And so we track everything. So that's how I schedule. That's how people's reservations are put onto our calendar. That's how it links to our website. And then every tour guide at the end of their tour, they check in, they do live check-ins. So on my phone, if we had 2 tours go out today, I can look at my phone and go, oh, okay, they're all checked in. Everyone's there. Great. I can go back to doing my thing. And then at the end of the tour, they write notes. And so and I make them detailed notes so that when we post on social media about them, we don't, it's not generic. We can say, Julie joined us from Maryland and she loves Wicked. She's sad Wicked wasn't open, but we can't wait till she's back in September to see Wicked. Right. And you can be very specific to your consumer. You can be very specific and there's a personal touch. I think that's all anyone wants these days. You just want to feel like someone thought about you. Yeah. And that's all we do as artists. All you're thinking when you're creating a puppet, it's how I would think, like me crafting a performance or a tour is how am I going to get an emotion or a reaction out of someone by what I do?
How do I connect to somebody?
Exactly. And so to me, it's that personal touch that is where small businesses thrive. But you want to also scale your small business so it's not, $20 a week.
Right.
Got to pay for the eyebrow cream and eyebrow threading somehow.
Do you feel like your acting training has helped you be a small business owner?
Yeah, I think everything in my life, up until 2010, and even post 2010, every single thing has influenced my business, which is why I think we're doing as well as we are, because I had all these other jobs, whether it's working with Katie in a library. So I have a weird niche knowledge of organization and systems. And Katie, of course, got her degree in that and was a genius and knew, you know what I mean? And by working alongside her and having this job that allows me flexibility to still be an artist and go to auditions and things. And I never really occurred to me that, one, I enjoyed the job, but two, how much I was learning from her of what a master's degree in library science and systems and archives and having a database and all of that, what any of that means. It isn't until I start a business and I go, oh my God, you can really use data if you categorize it the right way. You can really use that to further your business in ways. I taught for Rosie O'Donnell's charity for 5 years in the public schools. So I would walk into a classroom of mostly underserved youth who had no arts education and teach them a musical theater class, bring them to see a Broadway show that the organization paid for. So in that, I got really good at teaching and working with students.
Sure.
Very much so students that I didn't spend a lot of time with, that I just popped in for 1 day a week for 14 weeks and then you never see them again. And interacting with kids of all different backgrounds. So then half my business now is student groups, and any student group now I can connect and talk with them because I feel like I understand kids in 5th to 10th grade because I taught them for 5 years.
Sure.
And then the acting side of our life, the hustle to be an actor and to do that, and anyone who's insane enough to do the gig life of going from show to show, that there's a whole set of skills there of resilience and being told no and being creative and forging your own path. And then I live in New York City, and I've lived in New York City for 18 years, and it is the most glorious city. And I love it. I love everything about it. It's crazy and it's insane, and there's so many people, but I love it. And
so I think the New York Times article said that you described yourself as the only New Yorker who loves Times Square.
Yeah. And it's probably not an exaggeration.
I think it's probably true.
I think it's probably pretty close. Maybe there's another half person, maybe 1.5 of us, but I'm in love with the city. I'm in love with these theaters. And so when you throw all of that into a blender and out comes me in a green shirt, the green shirt is knit from fabric, sewn from all of that.
And not too soft.
It's definitely a Hanes satisfied one.
How do you, so, but you also said you have a bunch of tour guides. Like, it's not just you running the tours. So how do you take that? Like, how do you think about your process where you distill all of this stuff that is you and your experience and convey that to your tour guides and say, this is how we run our tours, or this is what the tours are about?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is by example. You're working with actors and artists. All my staff is actors or stage managers. And so they're already intuitive. They're very smart. There's not a lot of hand holding that has to happen because they're just already smart. They're inclined to be reading and picking up signs and watching me do it. They're picking up, a lot. So they have to come on my tour. They have to go on another tour guide's tour so they can see the material and stories delivered in a not Tim Dolan way, which is very specific and very over the top, in case you have to figure that out. I don't know why I don't do a lot of film and TV. They're like, your eyebrows are a little too large on camera. I was like, yeah, right. Give me a pandemic and I'm going to work on this craft of film and TV. My agent is not sending me out for any film and TV post-pandemic, so it didn't work. But it's a whole different interview, I'm sure. So then they come, they shadow, they get bullet points, they get the souvenir books, they get audio recordings of me doing it. And then I unleash them onto it. And their first tour, when I build a new tour and it's my first tour, it's your first read through, dress rehearsal, technical rehearsal, and opening night all happens in one tour. Sure. And you just hope that you remember anything and anything goes right and it makes any sense and it's not 7 hours long. And so but I have to tell you, in 11 years, you're going to think I'm insane. In 11 years, I have never been on one of my tour guides' tours. I can't do it. I cannot.
That was going to be my next question, was like, do you give notes like as the
No.
director?
No.
Amazing.
No, the way you know it's going well is reviews. People write reviews, and I get lots of feedback, and they're smart. You know, they'll tell me, I don't know, these people weren't really that into it, which doesn't happen often, but every once in a while it does. And so you can feel it out. We've had very, knock on wood and thank God, in 11 years, I've had very little negative feedback and critique. And one of the tour guides was like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. I think like crowds makes me nervous and 42nd Street makes me nervous. And I was like, abort. Why did you not? What do you think it was? What do you mean? What? So thankfully he wasn't around for too long, and I got him and I loved him, and I'm glad he was up front. And so you figure those out through feedback, but it stresses me out to listen to them tell the stories, because I'm like, well, why are you not telling it with more brow? Exactly. For them it doesn't work, but for me it works. And so it's really hard for me. And so it stresses me out. It stresses them out. It puts everyone ill at ease. And so I just don't do it. And so I'm just very honest and candid with them, and I let them do their own thing. And that has worked for 11 years so far. Sure.
Do you think you'll get to a point where you're not involved in training more and like training more people? Or do you feel like that's still a key part of it you want to be involved in?
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to, every business owner's dream, right, is to scale your business so large that it still feels personal, but you're not tied into the day today, and you can like go to Fiji, I guess is where people go. I don't know. I never really was interested in going there, but I guess that's like the dream, like having a daiquiri and like things are going and you're getting paid. I don't know. Sure. That was never really my dream. So I intimately want to be involved still with most parts of it. There are certain aspects like scheduling and stuff that I'm like, the moment, I mean, I'm working on GMs now that I'm like, your first thing you're going to do is schedule, because I hate doing that. I love doing accounting. I love doing QuickBooks. And so until they like pry my laptop and QuickBooks loaded page out of my hand, I'll do that because I like doing it. And there's not a lot of, social media. I enjoy it, but I don't enjoy the scheduling of it and having to do it all the time and say the right things. And I don't enjoy all of that. But for the past year, I've gotten better at that. But yeah, I think you add layers between me and the business, but I don't think I ever like go away and am found on a beach in Fiji going, how did it go? As I drink my margarita, out of a straw, apparently.
Right.
So I don't, I think you scale, but not so much that it's, we're Starbucks and Mr. Starbuck is nowhere to be seen.
Sure. One point that kind of brings up for me is like, one thing that I deal with a lot with running a small business is that I didn't become a puppeteer to run a small business.
Yes.
So like, how do you reckon this like successful entrepreneurship with your dream of becoming a singing and dancing actor?
Yeah. So it's hard. It's very hard. Right. And you have to really, and I really wrestled with it in probably the first 5 years of my business. Like, am I just opening a business? Am I done being an actor? No, but I still like being an actor. And every once in a while I do a show, but I don't love auditioning all the time. And the grind is kind of rough, but growing a business is tough. And it's this back and forth. And for 5 years, I really, not an identity crisis, but you're still if I make a plan B, then I'm giving up. And you're like, who cares? No one cares about you. No one's thinking about you. I have friends that are like, I've been in the show for 5 years. Do you think? I was like, no one's thinking about you. No one cares about you. If anything, they're like, is he still doing that? I love that for him. Congratulations that he's in Wicked year 8, like no one cares. Yeah. And so once I got that out of the way, I was like, no one cares. Right. I just started to do my own thing. And I said, sometimes I'll do shows and sometimes I'll open a gift shop and sometimes I'll do both. And sometimes, it'll be, so it's an ebb and flow always of all of them. And I identify now as an actor and small business owner is how I bill myself. I still do musicals. I was set to do Little Shop. I've turned down a couple shows because they opened at the same time as my gift shop. And I was like, I got to open a gift shop with these tri-blends. I'm so sorry, I can't do that show. And so you have to, and you turn down some shows here and there, but that's part of it. Do I feel like my performing career would have gone further had I put all the eggs in that basket? Sure. But I don't know that would have made me happier, or I'm less happy because I didn't. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It wasn't a great musical, but it's If Then, it can go one of two ways. And, I don't know. I'll never know.
Mm-hmm. You certainly have more agency if you are like making your own work. And, this is just it really seems like it's just a different kind of show that you've made. A lot, when I talk to puppeteers, and it's like, if you want to be a puppeteer, you go and you make a puppet show and, just do it. And then you get practice at it. And like, this is the same kind of thing. Like Broadway Up Close really seems like a different way of you making work and like telling stories and, it's very theatrical.
Yeah. And each tour is a show. So we opened our first interior tour in October 2019 of the Hudson Theater. And it was me, metaphorically banging on their door via email for a long time until they finally said, just stop emailing us and we'll meet you. And then once I got the meeting, I was ready. I had my souvenir books, I had my lanyards, I had what I would do. I was ready. And at the meeting, they were like, we've never met someone. Wow, you're like a kind of like this whirlwind of green tri-blend. Just eyebrows and tri-blend fabric. Like green whirlwind. I hope someone's counting because I'm absurd. And so they were like, yes, it's here. Here's the keys. And so how do you then craft the story of that theater? How do you build that show? And so I become the choreographer, the director, the dramaturg, also the dance captain who's going to put other people into the show. And so you end up putting on all the hats and doing all that. Mm-hmm. I will say, and I don't know that I've ever said this out loud or told anyone yet, but exclusive here on the Puppet Kitchen.
Why not?
Time online. So I'm writing a show that stitches all of this together.
Oh,
so
cool.
It's to me, it's a la What the Constitution Means to Me, as opposed to like duplex cabaret, me singing The Story Goes On with a pregnant belly and a 2-drink minimum is not the direction we're going. We're going more uptown.
Disappointed, but not surprised. I'm just going to say it.
Great. It'll probably still be at a venue you can drink at. It'll just be less me and a pregnant belly, more me and eyebrows. Yeah. And the costumes will all be made of a blend of tri. And so I've been writing this for about 6 months, and it's a navigation of the very distilled question of how do you tell a story, and the stories that are interesting to me, are they interesting to other people? Where those stories have taken me, whether it's the roof of the New Victory or it's the haunted Belasco apartment, and then the fabric of building a business while meeting people and these places, and then getting to 2021 in a pandemic. And then with a racial, upswell in this beautiful way of finally looking at our industry that was so inclusive, me as a white man telling these stories, like, where does that fit into any of that? And
sure. And
as a white man, how do you pick stories that aren't just about the 7 white men who built Broadway? Because that's what, when you're just telling the stories as they are, it's just 7 white men and they're very fancy white men and they did great things. Right. But where's the women? Where are the Black people? Where all the stories that in our industry are rarely told because they weren't documented, you really have to find them. And the part of the narrative of the story is, honestly, I was embarrassed. It wasn't until year 6 of my business of 11 years that I realized, oh my God, we're just telling white men stories because that's what Broadway has been. Mm-hmm. There has to be other stories. Mm-hmm. And then making a really conscious effort to bring in those stories. But then as a white man, am I allowed to tell those stories? Like, what? It's not my experience.
Right. And are you telling them and representing them effectively?
Correct.
Like, can you with your
and
shared background?
And so grappling with all of that, right?
Sure.
And so again, I think less 2-drink minimum, more universal themes of mixing my life as a performer, my life as a historian and archivist, and building these stories, and then throwing that into a blender of a pandemic and 11 years of business and racial, all of those thrown into the mix.
Yeah.
And then, make it succinct at an hour and 45 minutes.
I mean, I think if anybody can do it, it would be you.
Sure.
Sounds like it just probably needs some puppets.
I wasn't going to say it, but I'm just saying, like,
there are elements. I'm crafting the script now. And so I dream, you've met me, you've known me for years. I dream as ginormous and huge as possible. And you're like, okay, if I have like $4 million of a budget, what do we do? And so I have lots of ideas of, of course, I'm not a set designer, but of course I know exactly what I want the set to look like. But there's lots of ideas that are illusion meets puppetry meets things of the ways you display photos and things that pop out. And so you'll obviously be the first person that I'm like, hi, remember me?
That's all I ask. Yeah, that's really all I ask.
Yeah, I just need a big pair of like eyebrows that on the back wall.
Eyebrows, the music.
I think what this show's missing is eyebrows. So here we are.
Did you have a question you
want
to throw in there?
Because Tim mentioned Velasco.
Yeah.
It just felt like we can't have an interview without
a cameo.
Sure. And then also I just wanted to show the amazing sign that feels like it's now part of the Times Square infrastructure. Like it's So when I built the gift shop, I realized there's a whole bunch of people who don't care about Broadway, who don't care about arts, who are just coming to Times Square. Maybe they don't even speak English, so they can't come on an English-speaking tour. And so I said to my graphic designer, I want a photo op that's square because everyone loves Instagram. Mm-hmm. And I said, and I think it's me going to 8 different Broadway theaters and pulling one letter off each marquee, and we stack them 6 feet tall. And what does that look like? And he was on a flight back from Denver, I think, and on a napkin, he drew it on his little tray on the airline. And 2 hours later, he got off the flight and he took a picture of his napkin, and it's exactly what you see. And he had sketched in the colors. The colors are it's that napkin. And then we made it 6 feet tall. And it's 150 or something light bulbs. And it's there. It's in Times Square. And I wanted to feel iconic. I wanted to feel like it has been there forever. I wanted to feel like the letters were vintage, but also new. Sure. I didn't want it to feel old, but feel old, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we did it. I feel like we got to a really good place with it. And I knew that we achieved my goal because the first weekend, so we plugged it in and we plug it in and people instantly, can we take our picture with that? I was like, yes, please give me all your money and take a picture. The pictures are free, but also buy this ornament. And I remember there was a husband and wife or a man and woman. I don't know what the relationship was. I'm always guessing at relationships, but that's an absolute lie. I don't know the relationship. They walked past and I remember the woman said, oh my God, look at that Broadway sign. And he goes, oh, you don't know about the Broadway sign? It had been there for 2 days. And instantly I was like, one, that poor relationship, that poor woman. Like, okay, no, it's new. But it was instantly I was like, oh, good. It feels like it's been here for forever. And this jackass to his girlfriend or his wife or this friend, I hope it's just his friend who got out of there very quickly. Like instantly was like, you're an idiot. You don't know how it works. That's been here forever. 2 days, 48 hours. I don't know if he had done like 8 laps in the 48 hours. So he was the one who was like, it's been here forever. But I didn't see him prior to that. And then in the middle of the pandemic, I almost had an accident in my pants. I was at Chipotle once the Chipotle's opened back up, and I was like, oh, good, I can have real life things again. Right, I'm in line in my mask at Chipotle getting my burrito bowl, and I'm scrolling it through Instagram because I'm that customer who's like, how much is it? And I need to check my Instagram right now as I pay because I'm an idiot. And I looked, and a photo popped up in Indonesia of my Broadway sign. Someone had recreated my Broadway sign in Indonesia. And in this mall, this outdoor mall that's called the Broadway Mall, and it's there. They recreated it. And I like almost dropped my burrito bowl and my phone and shit myself. And thankfully none of that happened. And I got home and like started, where is this? Where in Indonesia? What's happening? Sure. And they had, I reached out to them and I was like, hey, it's me. This is me. I own that and it's mine. And they were like, oh my God, we thought New York owned this. It feels so timeless, like it's been there forever. It feels iconic. I was like, thank you so much, but it's mine. And they said, oh God, do you want us to get rid of it? Or what do you want us to do? We had no idea.
And I said, no, I'm totally flattered. I think it's very cool. I love that you feel that. I guess like put my name on top of it as seen in Times Square by Broadway Up Close. And so they did. And so there's this little like black thought bubble now in Indonesia on the other side of the world that where it's been recreated. And I was like, well, that imitation, flattery, that whole thing. I was like, oh,
Right.
okay.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Wow.
That's really, that's amazing.
Wow.
I have one last question too, because we were talking about, well, I have a couple last questions, but like, so your training as an actor has helped you, like everything leading up has helped you to like run a small business. Does it work the other way too? Like have you felt like running a small business has influenced your work as an actor, or your like how you are on stage, or your preparation for roles and things?
That's a really great question that no one has ever asked me. You're very smart. I like you. Yes. I mean, I think I'm more, not that I wasn't nice before, right? I'm pretty nice, but I'm more understanding of everyone that works on a show getting to that 8 p.m. curtain or getting to opening night. I feel like I'm more now empathetic or sympathetic or understanding of what goes into all the different departments that I never really was that aware of before. You just kind of show up and the set's built and then you dance out and you're like, this set's smaller than I thought it was. And I'm having a hard, and instantly you start complaining.
Right.
And so I think now I'm much more aware of the amount of thought that went into every piece of that, not just me dancing on that creation. Mm-hmm. And so it's made me, I think, more understanding as a human and a performer. And I don't know. I think because I have this business and because I have these parts of my life that are both engines chugging at the same time, sometimes one train edges out, further than the other. Mm-hmm. I think it has allowed me a chance to not be so desperate, like everything hangs in my life balance on me booking this production of Little Shop of Horrors in Michigan.
Right.
And so I think as a human, it allows me to go in for auditions and things that I want to do. Mm-hmm. And if something comes along and you're like, well, I would love to do that. That sounds great, but it's not something, that project or that commercial or that whatever is, I don't know. That if I don't do that production, it's not, my life will be fine and you'll be fine and we'll all be fine. And so it leads to a world where I'm making decisions on things that I want to do. Mm-hmm. And I realized years ago, I was a waiter for a couple of years and years ago. And, having other jobs where you're the person who is the hourly employee who shows up. I realized that for the last 8 years, I wake up every single day and decide what I want to do. And I get to decide how much fun or not fun I have. And I get to decide what my job is, whether it's in my performing career or not. And what I encourage everyone in the world to do, especially in this world where anyone really can do anything, if you really figure it out and really put enough passion and enough, energy into something and are smart about how you build it and are aware of how it's being received, I think anyone can do that. I don't think I'm special or unique in that. I have an unbelievable amount of passion and energy, yes, and eyebrows, and beautifully threaded eyebrows. But I don't think I'm unique in the sense that anyone can do this. Yeah. You have to be laser focused on what you want to do with your life every single day. And to me, it's be surrounded by artists and to work with artists and create art in my way, whether it's on stage or in my business, and to do things that no one has done before and to be creative as hell. Yeah. And that's what I do every single day. And so for the last 8 years, I'm not, no one's dictating what I do. I dictate my schedule. And if I'm stressed and I've overbooked myself, that's my fault. I've done that. I have chosen that. I'm the idiot who put too many things on my plate, and it's my own fault,
I mean, I think that's an incredible place to leave off. Like it's really empowering to hear about like how you get to that place of being in control of your, of what you're doing in your career, whether you are, running a merchandise store, or whether you're an actor, like getting a lot of gigs, or like having that idea of, you can be in charge of it if you give it the thought and give it the passion, give it the attention, that you can get to a place where you are in control of that. I think that's really great.
My parents call our schedules unstable. And I always say, I think you mean flexible. Is that what you mean? Flexible?
Right.
And it is. It's a schedule that because we work at 8 p.m. or we audition at this time, or because we have months between, or we know we have a show coming up, but it doesn't start for 2 months and we're making no money. It allows you opportunity to think outside the box and fill in the hours of your day very intentionally with other things. Yeah. And me, year one, talking to a businessman sitting on a desk in a building that is downtown is very different than me at the tail end of a pandemic 11 years later. So it's easy for me to say it now, but you have to just start. I think it's your advice to puppeteers, which is just make a puppet and build a show and get 2 people to come to it. Right. And it's that line that it's one of Katie's shows, and I always think of her when I think of the show, which is title of show, which is so niche. And of course, we're obsessed with it because it's niche of niche. And it's the last song of, I'd rather be 9 people's favorite things than 100 people's 9th favorite thing. Because eventually those 9 people, as the song says, are going to tell 9 people. Those 9 people tell, and then 11 years later, the New York Times is like, we've heard about you. We want to write. And you're like, oh my God, dream come true, you guys. Oh my God. But it is because of 11 years of thoughtful decisions and just, I'm going to keep going and I'm going to build and I'm going to create my own. I'm still going to be on stage and I'm going to still have a drink with a friend. And I'm going to talk about that dude with his puppets. And it all, you have to just glue it all together and just do it. But the ball doesn't form out of just one little dab of glue. Yeah. I don't know what this glue metaphor is, but
I love it. And Tim, thank you so much for being on the show.
Of course.
This has been incredible. I wish you all the luck. I can't wait to come on one of your tours.
Thank you. Close.com. Check us out.
Yeah. BroadwayUpClose.com. We've got it right here.
Nailed it.
Check it out.
I got you, Tim. I got you.
Also, check them out on Instagram at Broadway Up Close.
There we are.
They do tons of social media. Tim's on Instagram stories all the time. It's great.
All the time.
So if you want to catch more of those eyebrows, you'll know where to find it.
Sure.
Tim, thank you so much again for being on the show. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me. Great to see you. Bye, Katie.
Bye.
Well, thank you everybody for watching. It's been another great show. This was episode 51. You can check out more of Puppet Kitchen at our website and on Instagram. And you can support this show on Patreon. We have a Patreon account, so you can help support the show and help us bring more great guests like Tim to talk about puppetry and business and being an actor and all of those things and what that means. Just a reminder, you can, do you want to play we have got our outgoing theme song. I'm incredibly indebted to Jocelyn, Mackenzie, and Emily Hope Price, who wrote this new theme song that we have. And of course, as usual, huge thanks to Katie for keeping the show running smoothly. And a huge thanks to all of you for coming and watching. We'll be back next week, Wednesday at 2 o'clock, right in the middle of the middle, 2 p.m. Eastern. And until then, just remember, you don't have to do everything to do something. We'll see you next time.